Welcome to Your Mac Life for Wednesday, June the 14th, 2017, show number 1138. I am your host, Shawn King. Thank you guys very much for joining me here live on this Wednesday evening or via the archive, however you so choose to listen into the show. As always, we're going to have our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com on tonight's show, but it'll be taped because Jim had a previous engagement this evening, so I taped it earlier this afternoon. We talked about his WWDC wrap-up, his iPad 10.5-inch iPad Pro review. That's tempting. It really is. Is it tempting anybody else? I've got my iPad. I think it's 4 or 5. I don't even know what version it is. I love my iPad. I don't do a lot with my iPad, work-wise. I wish I could do more. But with iOS 11, it looks like there might be more work-related stuff in there, especially with a better screen, a bigger iPad. I'm tempted. Luckily, I'm also poor, so I will not be getting a 10.5-inch iPad anytime soon. Will you? Is it something that makes you want a new iPad, or is the iPad you've got, if you've got one, good enough for what you do with it, the way you use it? I don't need it as a screen to watch TV. It's perfectly good the way it is. Every now and then I'll lie in bed and I'll watch motorcycle racing or something, a comedy, Netflix, whatever. So I don't use it to the extent that justifies getting an iPad Pro. I think I'll wait until iOS 11 before I start saving my pennies. Because I think 11, from what I've seen on the iPad Pro, really, really rocks. It was really cool. Let's talk to you about that. We're also going to talk about, did you notice Tim Cook did an interview yesterday with Bloomberg talking about autonomous car systems? Haven't I been saying this for years, that Apple is less likely, in my opinion, to be building its own car and more likely to be building the systems that go into other people's cars? And that's what Tim Cook talked to Bloomberg about. We'll talk to Jim about that. Also, we talked a little bit about Planet of the Apps. Is it something you've seen? Have you watched Planet of the Apps yet? What are your thoughts on Planet of the Apps if you've seen it? Send me an email to Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com. Jim hasn't seen it, but he had some preliminary thoughts about it, and I have seen the first 30 minutes, and that's probably all I'm going to see. Frankly, the show is boring. There's no compelling interest for me to continue watching the show. I'm not interested in the apps. I'm not interested in the judges. I'm not interested in the format. There's nothing. It's not a bad show per se. It's just literally not interesting. And, there's so much on TV and there's so many other things I can watch that are interesting that I'm not going to slog my way through any more of Planet of the Apps. So send me emails to Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com. Let me know what you think about that. In our Starting Point Photography segment, we're going to talk about photographing strangers on the street. It's my favorite kind of photography, is urban photography or street photography. And a lot of that includes, doesn't always have to be, but a lot of that includes shooting strangers on the street. And there's a couple of ways to do it and several techniques to do it that we'll talk about later on in the Starting Point Photography segment, along with whatever emails and other things that pop up over the next hour and a half. After WWDC, a lot of the reviews, obviously, of the iPad Pro came out. Also, seeing a lot of comments about the HomePod. And one of the interesting things I read was from Recode. And Recode wrote a story that said, Apple is pitching the HomePod as a super high-quality speaker. That's going to be a very tough sell. Is it? You think it's going to be a tough sell? I don't think it will be. If only because I believe that most people don't necessarily want a device in their home that they talk to. Hey, Alexa, what's the temperature outside? Hey, Google Home, how much does milk cost? I don't see that as a compelling use case for a lot of people, especially for those of us who already have our iPhones within arm's reach. If a lot of that stuff I can do with Siri. Now, how Siri works for any number of people is obviously up for debate. But for me, that kind of thing, why would I buy an Alexa device when I've got the iPhone? Why would I buy a Google Home when I've got the iPhone? But if you can sell me a good home speaker, maybe that's something I'd be interested in. Because while not all of us want to talk to a speaker, a lot of us, not all of us, but a lot of us want a speaker that sends sound to us, music. I think a good home speaker has a much broader audience than a internet-connected communication device that duplicates what already happens on our iPhones. Yes, a lot of folks love their Alexa. A lot of folks love their Google Home. What I'm saying is there's a larger market for a good quality speaker, especially if that speaker hooks into my iPhone, hooks into my Macintosh, hooks into my Apple TV, and plays good quality sound out of those things. That, to me, seems to have a wider, broader reach, even at $350, as the other devices that don't sound as good. Everyone has said both the Google Home and the Amazon Echo devices don't have good quality music sound. The voices coming out of them are fine, but when you try to listen to music, not so much. Whereas Apple is touting the HomePod as a good music speaker. I think that's a big difference and a great way for Apple to differentiate itself from the Google Home and the Amazon Echo and Alexa. I think that makes things more interesting for Apple. Vox had a story why Apple's HomePod is so much more expensive than Google and Amazon smart speakers, because it's not a smart speaker. It's a speaker that does smart things. If you can get that I'm maybe parsing words there, but the functionality of the HomePod, first and foremost, is good quality sound, and therefore its components have to be better quality than what an Amazon Echo would do, whose primary function isn't good quality sound, but is a internet-connected device to help you buy things. Plus, as MacMan says in the IRC chat room, home automation. Because I think a lot of us want home automation. I think a lot of us would like to be able to say, hey, Siri, turn the lights on. Or, and this is down the road, it's 8 o'clock at night. Thinking about getting ready for bed. Hey, Siri, run the bath. And have your plumbing start. Or, hey, Siri, turn the dishwasher on. The kind of home automation that would be cool would be the kind of things that I load the dishwasher up in the morning, and as I walk out the door, because of geolocation, the dishwasher or the house or Siri or my iPhone know I've left the house, run the dishwasher because it's loud, or run the washing machine, or those kinds of things. So Apple, because of HomeKit, and with this HomePod, will have a greater ability for you to create those hooks into those other devices, your lights, your TV, your radio, your computer, those kinds of things. Much more so than the hodgepodge of other companies and products. Because one of the problems now is that you got to, in general, other people's home automation stuff doesn't work with each other. So if you buy a Honeywell thermostat, it doesn't work with someone else's devices. Whereas with HomeKit, because that's the foundation, all these other companies' devices will work with HomeKit. I think that's where Apple's got a leg up on this kind of stuff. Monty, I can't do that with HomeKit because I'm not sure what you mean by dishwasher. Yeah, yes, Siri has to get better. There's no doubt about that. Siri has to get smarter and more able to understand our voices. It's one of the things that I have a problem with Siri that annoys the hell out of me is the fact that I have to quite frequently tell her to do things more than once or in different ways. I was talking about this on Twitter last week, telling Siri, hey Siri, set a 10-minute timer. And Siri pops up and says, and now, oh my God. I just said, hey Siri, set a 10-minute timer. And my iPad in the other room goes, okay, set a 10-minute timer. Shut up. No. I don't know if you guys can hear Siri, but that's what she's doing. But Siri said, do you want to call Jason Snell? No, I don't want to call Jason Snell. Why don't you set a timer? What the hell's wrong with you? Or I'll be out and about with in the job, and Monty, you're doing the same thing to my phone. That's right. And I'll say, Siri, where's the nearest Save on Foods? And she popped up with this thing that said, would you like directions to Joe's Coffee Bar? No, now, did I say the word Save on Foods in a weird kind of way? So yeah, she definitely has to get much, much better at hearing people's voices. So WWDC was last week. All the nerds have come home. And weirdly enough, I was talking to someone about this afternoon, and I said, did you get the Creeping Crud from WWDC? And they said, no, you know what? I never do. I said, yeah, isn't that interesting? That you don't hear very often about people saying they went to WWDC and got the Creeping Crud, and yet every time we all came back from Macworld Expo, we were all sick for a week afterwards. What does that say about the attendees at Macworld Expo? That they're all just nasty. They're all filthy, filthy people. But Rob Enderley, who's an idiot, said there was no excitement that came out of WWDC. Again, he's an idiot. There was all kinds of exciting things for developers at WWDC, which is who it's for. But there was all kinds of stuff there for the average consumer, too. iOS 11 looks really, really interesting. Looks really, really cool. There's some really interesting things that are going to happen with your iOS devices with iOS 11. The new iPod Pro looks really cool. I want one. I can't afford one. I'm not going to buy one, but I want one. And the functionality of the two with the iPad Pro and iOS 11 is going to be it's going to rock. It's going to make that device so much more capable than it has in the past. The new iMacs, if you are in the market, if you have an iMac that's 3 years old, these new iMacs are going to just kick ass. The new iMac Pro is a really interesting device in my mind. I can't justify having one when they come out in late fall, but a lot of folks can and will. It's, to me, the most interesting part about the iMac Pro is who is going to buy it. The pro market, whoever that might be. Will pros buy the iMac Pro, or will they wait for the Mac Pro coming out in 2018? There's a certain percentage of pros that'll buy it regardless, just because they need that power now, and they'll buy another one in 2018. I wonder how many folks are going to be buying the iMac Pro or waiting for the full-blown Mac Pro in 2018. Apple TV, having Amazon come to Apple TV is really cool for a lot of folks. I think the biggest next step for Apple TV is going to be 4K video. That'll start being able to drive that. It's not a real concern because not a lot of people have 4K TVs yet. So hardware-wise, new MacBooks and MacBook Pros, mostly just speed bumps, but there's a lot of stuff there for Mac users. So I think Enderley is being his typical idiot self and saying it wasn't anything exciting coming out of WWDC. I heard from a lot of developers, either both read online or via email or talked to them, that they're very excited about what they saw and heard out of Apple from WWDC. So as long as those guys are excited, that makes me excited because they're the future. They're what's going to be exciting us, regular consumers, in 6 months, in 8 months, in 4 months, kind of thing. So what are your thoughts about WWDC as either a developer or as a regular consumer? Send me emails to Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com and let me know. Later on the show, in our starting point photography segment, we're going to talk about shooting. After the events today, I shouldn't say shooting. Photographing strangers in the street. There's a technique. There's a couple techniques to doing it. There's a couple ways of doing it, and I can help you get better shots of strangers on the streets. We'll talk about that in the starting point photography segment. But up next, we have a taped interview with our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. All that and much more coming up. This is Your Mac Life. Welcome back, folks. In our phone, we now have our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. Jim, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. Let's do a little quick WWDC wrap-up. What's your final thoughts on it? I know you wrote a review of it up on loopinsight.com, but give us your audio version.
Wow.
Yeah? That good, huh?
Did you just fall down?
No, sorry. I rolled my I just rolled my chair away. I'm back
Good.
now.
God.
Sorry, I didn't realize Mike picked that up. Hardwood floors and hard wheels. That'll do it.
I really liked Dub Dub in San Jose.
Yeah.
I actually loved it. Apple built this wonderful little plaza right outside of the McHenry Center.
Yeah.
So when you walked out of the building, you walked into this plaza with tables and chairs and couches and comfy type chairs,
yeah,
and people, coffee and drinks and everything else, and people were sitting and chatting and everything else. It was wonderful. When you walk out of WDC building in Moscone, you've left WDC.
Yeah. That
was it. You were gone. Here, you could be a couple blocks away and still feel part of WDC.
You said in the final thoughts in WWDC in San Jose and The Loop, WWDC in San Francisco felt like a tech conference. WWDC in San Jose feels more like a get-together of friends.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I got to believe that you think that Apple should keep it there for next year. Should they pre-announce the dates for next year's WWDC in San Jose?
Oh, I don't think that matters.
Well, wouldn't you think it'd be easier for folks to make plans and travel arrangements and hotels and that kind of stuff?
Well, people are going to go no matter where it is or when they announce it.
True.
So it doesn't matter. But I certainly hope that they keep it in San Jose because, there are some things that they need to work on, and not necessarily Apple, but the city.
Yeah.
And the one complaint that I had and that other people I talked to had is that restaurants in the area closed.
Yeah.
Because, Monday night in a normal month is not a big business night.
Yeah, that's right.
Monday night at WDC was a big business night.
Yeah, yeah.
And, the restaurants were all closing. So, I think that if the city went to talk to some of these restaurants and said, hey, you've got, thousands and thousands of people that want to eat and drink and, have coffee and do all this stuff, why don't you stay open?
Well, that's one of the reasons why I said, should Apple pre-announce the dates for next year for exactly those kinds of reasons. So other folks who are looking to ride the coattails of WWDC can make plans ahead of time and things like that.
Well, it doesn't take long for a restaurant to say to its staff, "We're going to stay open,
True.
next month." So,
now,
I don't think that they need to pre-announce.
Now, that being said, I don't think Apple will, because by not pre-announcing the dates, they give themselves weeks or months of leeway in case something isn't going right at the end of April. Say they can say, "Hey, we'll push WWDC back another 2 weeks or 3 weeks in order to get this next project ready for announcing." So I don't think Apple will do that. I do think they will keep it in San Jose. From all the responses that I've read about it, there were no significant downsides of San Jose, and compared to San Francisco, it was cheaper, both for hotels and transportation and getting around and things like that. So I think it is to Apple's advantage to keep it in San Jose.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what they do. They handed you your new 10.5-inch iPad Pro, and you've been using it for the last week or so. You've got a review of the new iPad Pro up on loopinsight.com. You said, one of the key elements for me on the iPad Pro is the True Tone display. I'm surprised that you would say that would be a key element. Why is that?
Because you can see it. You can see it. It's that simple.
What do you mean you can see it? For those of us who never use True Tone.
Okay, so, if you take an iPhone outside in the sun, you can't really see the display.
Yeah.
Same with an iPad. You take it out in the sun and you can't see it, so you got to find a shady spot to look at it. With the True Tone display, it adjusts the display, not bright, not just brightness or anything. It adjusts colors and everything else to factor in the ambient light, so you can see the display in direct sunlight.
So, I've got my automatic brightness on my iPhone and my iPad turned off. Let me finish the sentence, goddammit.
No. God. Sometimes I wonder why I take your phone call.
It's a surprise to me each and every week. I'll tell you that right now. And those weeks where we can't get a hold of you, I think, yep, that's it. He's done.
Yeah.
He's decided, now screw Shawn. But so that's why, to me, and like I said, I had never used the True Tone. I turn auto brightness off, but you're saying that's not what this is. This is not just the display getting brighter.
Unknown caller.
No.
Who's getting an unknown caller, me or you? That's me. Okay, hang on. Possible solicitation. Oh, stop. Go away.
That is not at all what this technology is.
It's completely different from just automatic brightness.
Yeah, it factors in everything around you. Yeah. So if you are sitting outside and then you go inside, it will change again to factor in that. If you go to a coffee shop with fluorescent lighting, it will change again. It's always changing based on where you are so that you can see the display.
But you saying that as a photographer, that bothers me, because one of the things that you want in photography is color fidelity. You want to be able to know that the colors are going to be the same. So what you're saying, do you think that would be an issue for folks like me who, if I take my iPad Pro to a coffee shop or to outdoors and edit a photo, will that photo then look different when I bring it indoors?
Well, speaking from experience, you can find a problem with almost anything. But
well, you're not wrong.
But I don't think it actually changes the colors. I think it changes the screen to allow you to see it based on where you are. Yeah. I think those are two different things.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know that would be a problem.
I'm definitely going to go to one of my local Apple stores and check it out when they become available. The other screen feature that you talked about in the review is ProMotion. Explain what that is.
So ProMotion, basically, most screens, a refresh rate is at 60 hertz.
Yes.
With ProMotion on the iPad, you get 120, which means that everything you do is just fluid.
Yeah.
everything on there is just, I mean, it's so nice. And you don't, when you're on a regular iPad, you may scroll through and say, yeah, I mean, this is fine. This is great. It's just what I expected.
Yeah.
When you scroll through on this, it's like you notice it. You just say, wow.
It's one of those things where it's been described to me that it's hard to read text on the other screens when you're scrolling because that just ever so slight jerkiness of it. And it sounds like ProMotion gets rid of that jerkiness, doesn't it?
Oh, there's no jerkiness.
Yeah.
No.
It's all very smooth.
Everything is very smooth. So you can see the screen. Everything is smooth. Boom. Done.
Physically, it's about the same physical size and weight as the previous 9.7-inch iPad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do your covers and screens, covers and cases all still work with the same, if it's physically approximately the same size?
I got a new cover.
Sorry, you got a new what?
Cover. The new smart keyboard.
But does your old one work is the question.
I never even tried that.
Why wouldn't you try that?
Why would I care?
Because if you've got an old keyboard, you may not want to buy a new keyboard just for your new iPad.
Well, if you're going to buy a new iPad, you're going to buy a new keyboard.
Not necessarily. Not if your old keyboard fits.
No, because your old keyboard would be all messy. It's got Heineken spilled all over it, and you know.
The keyboard is a slight bit larger as well too, and you mentioned that in your review. The keys are a little wider, I guess.
Well, no, I want them to be wider.
Oh, okay.
I really love the new keyboard that Apple has on its MacBooks, and I don't understand why the keys on the smart keyboard are so small.
Yeah.
So I would like them to make those keys bigger because the space is there. So make those keys a little bit bigger.
Yeah. One of the interesting things I read in your review and in all the others is that this is a good, if not great, iPad all by itself. But bringing iOS 11 onto it is going to make it pretty incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, you know, one of the things that impressed me in the keynote was the features in iOS 11 specifically for the iPad.
Yep.
Because it shows me that Apple realizes that they're going to need to split out some of those features for iPad users to make the iPad what its customers really want. And that's a computer, basically. Yeah, a mobile touchscreen computer. And, you know, it's got the power. It's got the graphics performance. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't always have the OS features to be able to do things. Now, I sat down and actually wrote the review of the iPad, the HomePod look that I did, and the story about being in San Jose, all on that iPad Pro. Mm-hmm. You know, sitting in the plaza at WDC, I wrote all of those, and it was great. You know, it was really great. So I had the split screen going. I had multitasking, and you know, I was dragging and dropping things, and you know, it was wonderful.
It feels like iOS 11, while not officially called that, will become known as the iPad OS. That this seems a lot of these new features are specific to the iPad. We don't know yet if these features will come to the iPhone. Apple hasn't said anything about that or announced anything along those lines. But it feels like Apple's finally taking advantage of that combination of what the iPad can do, both screen size and power, along with what the OS can do, coupling those two together. I think this could be the beginning of that split where it may not be official, but that split of iOS into iPhone and iPad.
Well, I think what they're going to do is just what they did with iOS 11, and that, you know, if you have the OS on an iPad, you get all of these new features that are made for the bigger screen. I mean, I wouldn't want to do a split screen. What?
Sorry, you wouldn't want to do split screen and what?
Somebody just said you have 10 seconds.
I know. Fucking autoplay ads. Jesus Christ.
Okay. All right.
Sorry.
What did I say a couple minutes ago?
I don't know.
I don't know why I keep taking these calls.
That's right. I can't wait for High Sierra, and if nothing else, then I'll go back to using Safari so it blocks autoplay ads. For that reason alone, I will switch back to Safari because it's the most annoying. Someone please show me the guy who invented that so I can punch him right in the throat.
Well, my question is, why are you visiting Macworld while you're talking to me?
It wasn't. I was going to Bloomberg.
Okay.
Bloomberg has got him too. It's not just Macworld. Macworld's the most egregious one in the Mac community, but a lot of websites do it. It just makes me want to strangle somebody.
So
we're talking about the split of OSs.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to do a split screen multi-view on an iPhone.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that.
You'd be silly. You could do it, and people will bitch about it if you aren't able to, but it is a silly thing to think that the iPhone is not designed for that kind of usage.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Just not doing it.
Not doing it. I'm looking forward to playing around with iOS 11 in general. I'm not going to install the beta. And by the way, folks, you shouldn't either unless you're willing to do bug reports and that kind of stuff. Don't do it just for the sheer fun of it. Certainly not on a production machine. I'll wait until it comes out in the fall. But I've seen a lot of reviews of it and a lot of comparisons of it. And it looks really, really interesting. Yeah,
it really is an interesting release. And so what was it, Tuesday night or Wednesday night? I went out, had a few beer, feeling pretty good. And I put it on my iPhone.
Just sit in the bar and thought, what the hell, update, right?
Well, that's exactly it. That was exactly the way it went. Sitting in the bar and, few beer in and thought, why not?
What the hell?
I'm going to put it on. So I did. So I've been using iOS 11 on my phone since, last week.
And?
It's much more stable than what I thought. I would never, ever do this.
Yeah. Unless you were in a bar.
Yeah. I got to remember this next year. Like, I gotta somehow find a way to block my access to my developer account.
That's right.
But yeah, I put it on my phone. It's because it's a beta, it's a bit slow.
Yeah.
But most of the apps work, and everything is fine.
Yeah.
I'm able to obviously take calls and send emails and stuff like that. So,
and I'm sure before you did this update, you had a most recent backup too, didn't you?
I did.
You lie. You did not.
No, I have an iCloud backup.
Oh, okay.
From my phone.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah. But I had also put it on my iPad to see those new features.
Sure. Yeah.
So I knew what quality the beta was. And usually, I'll be honest, what I do is wait until like the third beta.
Yep.
And then I call Rennie Ritchie because he puts them all on his phone.
He does.
So I call Rennie and say, "How's this one?" And he says, "Oh no, don't do it.
Yeah,
don't do it. Don't do it." I said, "Okay, fine." Next one comes out, I call Rennie. I give it like 2 hours and call Rennie.
Yeah.
How's this one? He said, "This one's really good. I think they finally got it. This is good." So then I'll put it on and start using it. But yeah, Rennie's my guinea pig. I should probably pay him for QA or something.
But I've heard that from a lot of folks that this is a remarkably stable developer preview. Like you said, it is slow, and there are some apps that have not yet been updated and will crash on you. But for the most part, the OS itself is rock solid for a lot of uses.
Yeah, and what convinced me one of the factors was they said that the public beta would be out within a month.
Yeah.
So the fact that it's that close to a public beta, I knew it was solid. So I put it on my iPad, and it was very solid.
Yep.
I use those features; they all work great. And then, like I said, Fubarium, update.
Curiosity got the better of you.
Oh, it really did. It really did. So then I'm sitting there, and as it's updating, I thought, oh shit,
this thing blows up on me.
Too late now.
Yeah, exactly. Halfway through is too late. Yesterday, Tim Cook spoke to Bloomberg Technologies, said that Apple is focused on an autonomous systems in cars push. Now, this is something I've been saying for quite some time, but what I thought
you have.
What I thought was really interesting was Cook talking about this. This is something that Apple usually doesn't talk about. Now, they didn't talk about exact features or cars or anything else along those lines, but were you surprised by Cook even admitting that this is part of their focus of the company?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, the first person I thought of was you.
Yep.
Because you've been saying for a while, what if it's not a car and it's the system?
No. Let's get that correct. I haven't been saying what if. I'm saying it's not a car. I've said from the very beginning, Apple is looking at this autonomous system type thing that they will sell to other manufacturers.
You just can't fucking take a compliment, can you? You have to.
It's got to be correct.
You have to even correct me on a compliment. I mean, my God. Right. I mean, it's. I haven't even been drinking yet, and I can't even get a compliment out. So yes, you did say that it was system. So it seems that you may be right.
Well, like I've always said, it just seems to make more sense for Apple to build a system that they sell to others as opposed to trying to sell each of us one of their own Apple cars. As much as the nerds and geeks want an Apple logo on the front of their car, I don't think it makes financial sense for Apple to do it that way.
Yeah.
That being said, why do you think why do you think Cook admitted this to Bloomberg yesterday?
I have no idea.
I know, isn't it? That's what I can't figure out.
Maybe they got him drunk or something. Maybe he was installing iOS 11 on his phone at the same time and thought, well, why not? I might as well talk about the car at the same time.
Well, I heard from one little birdie who doesn't have any inside information, but they said that they think it's because this is the kind of project that can't be kept secret from the government. That there are certain things that you have to do to let the government know you're doing these kinds of things, and that information is going to come out next week or next month, and therefore Cook thought, what the hell? I mean, he's not really admitting anything that a lot of folks didn't already suspect, and he's not giving any hard, fast details. He's just saying, it's a core technology we think is important, and we're going to be working on it.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to see that they did up, and I think this is another one of those data points that you and I both have been saying for years of Cook slowly loosening the reins on the intense, tight security in some areas of the company that was different from the way Steve Jobs ran things. Steve Jobs would never have had this conversation with Bloomberg. There's no doubt about it. But Cook seems to be able to say that, there are some things that we can tell you guys about because they're not going to affect our business. Everyone else is doing it. It's not like it's Google suddenly going to go, we should do this too. Apple's behind the announcement curve on this kind of stuff. As the Bloomberg story said, a half dozen vehicles have already been surreptitiously testing on public roads in and around San Francisco for the last 6 months to a year. So it's not like this is an unknown thing that Apple's been testing.
Right.
The other thing I read online was that this was a way for Apple to signal to those folks who are in the AI community that you can come work for us. It's interesting that I don't know where this is coming from, but I've seen this pop up on a couple of discussions that the folks who are developing AI, the worker bees, the coders and the thinkers, don't want to work for a secret company like Apple. They want to publish their information. They want to be able to openly discuss these kinds of things. So other people have said online, this is a signal to those folks that we are going to be more open about this, and you can come work for us, work for the coolest company in Silicon Valley, and we'll let you publish and we'll let you get the information out there. I don't know how true that is, but that's what I've been reading.
Well, that does make some sense too, but Apple is still not going to let them publish it.
I think they'll let them publish some things in a big AI picture. No, they won't let them publish here. Here's how we did this widget on the car OS. Yeah. Certainly not. Yeah. But it is going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Like I said, if next week we hear Apple make a different official announcement, then my source will have been proven correct that this is because there was something they had to do with like the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA. Maybe those guys, some sort of thing that Apple had to announce, and that's why Cook thought it was okay to talk to Bloomberg about it. He did. Yeah. He was very clear, though, in saying that there's nothing. He said when Bloomberg was talking about will Apple ultimately manufacture its own car, Cook said we're not really saying from a product point of view what we will do with this information. So that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And last but not least, have you had a chance to watch Planet of the Apps?
I did not. I had better things to do, like install iOS 11 on my phone.
In a bar, drunk. Yes, of course. I wish I could. Gizmodo said, watching Apple's new Shark Tank-inspired TV series is like slowly dying. That's not good.
I heard from some developers that that were texting, because we were at a bar. They were texting people that were in the room when it was being viewed, and developers that were in the room were groaning when it was.
I think groaning would be pretty mild. I watched the first half hour of the first hour-long show, and I was just, it's boring. That's the death of any TV. I don't care what it's about, but it wasn't interesting. I didn't care about the judges. I don't care about Will.i.am's opinion about technology. I think Gwyneth Paltrow's an idiot. Jessica Alba, I don't know what her background is, but I don't get a sense that she knows much about technology. She may be a fashion icon or whatever it is. And then the other guy, the VC guy, I don't even have a clue who he is at all, so I have no experience level with him. And so half the people that are on the stage judging, you don't care about their opinions to begin with.
Well, what makes some of these reality TV shows somewhat believable, although I don't watch any of them, I'll be honest, because I just don't like them. But when you look at shows like, I don't know, American Idol, or, the people that are judging are other singers and producers, and they've been in the business.
That's right. They
know what it takes to win. The Voice, you have other singers, and they're superstars in their own genres, and so they can say to you, you know what, that was a really good performance, but you need to improve here, and I don't know if I can support you. You buy that. You say, okay, this guy he knows what he's talking about.
Exactly.
But when you get to a show and the guy is Will.i.am, or who's Gwyneth Paltrow, what do you know about coding?
Yeah, that's right. And Paltrow, as far as I know, knows nothing about coding. She's a nut bar who has these weird ideas about health and fitness that some of her are in fact dangerous. Will.i.am has come out with some products that have been complete flops. And Will.i.am has put his name to products. I don't believe for a second he's developed them. Both a camera and a smartwatch that have been complete and total disasters. Jessica Alba is in the fashion industry, and I don't know anything about that, so I don't know if she's well respected there. So yeah, like you said, when it comes to American Idol or The Voice or those kind of shows, I believe the judges know what they're talking about, and I'll take their opinion as good information. But these guys, I think I know more than they do, and I very well may not, but because of their public personas, I think I'm smarter than they are.
It just feels like, and I haven't watched it. I will watch one episode just so that I can watch one. But the whole premise just feels like, okay, we made this show. Yep. Now we need some stars to draw people in. And that's not the right way to make a show.
Well, I think the way and then if that was the case, I don't see these people as being stars. I don't see them as being, big. These are Hollywood C-list and B-list celebrities, I think, at best. So there's that. Then there's the direction of the show, the way the show is presented on your TV screen. That's really annoying. They keep breaking the fourth wall to remind you that this is a TV show. Look, there's the camera, and then you hear the director, and it's like, yeah, I know I'm watching a TV show, guys. I don't need to be reminded. And then, bizarrely enough, they have Zane Lowe from Beats Music, from Apple Music, doing these interviews. And again, he's a music guy. Why is he interviewing app developers? And then finally, who cares about app developers? No offense to all the app developers out there, but coding is not interesting TV. There's no drama there. There's no element of excitement to coding or to talking about code. So I think the thing just falls apart on many different levels, and it'd be really interesting to find out why and who at Apple, I got to assume it's Eddie Q, who greenlit this thing and why they thought it would be a workable TV show.
I don't know.
Did you? I just saw this story come by. I posted about it on The Loop, and then the story came out that a book called I'm trying to get the information on the book.
Don't go to another auto place.
I know. I'm going to. I posted on The Loop the information about a new book that's coming out about the secret history of the iPhone and secret origin story of the iPhone, written by a guy named Brian Merchant. And he posted an excerpt of it on The Verge, and the excerpt immediately got slammed by the people who was telling the story about Tony Fadell and Philip Schiller. They both said the story did not happen the way it happened. John Gruber during Fireball jumped on it. Have you been following this? Have you seen this story?
I read Gruber's jumping on it. Yeah,
it's interesting too that I don't see Gruber as jumping on it so much as just pointing out the inconsistencies of the story. When this kind of stuff happens, does it make you question the entire article, the entire book, all of the information, or do you just go,
yes.
Okay, maybe that's not right, and the rest of it is?
No, right? I question all of it.
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah, but the thing is, what's not clear is, as Gruber says, he says, I'm not sure what Fadell is alleging here, that he was profoundly misquoted by Brian Merchant, or that he was quoted accurately, but the story he told wasn't true. It has to be one or the other. People are slamming the author when until we find out from the author, is Fadell being quoted correctly or not? Was this story told to the author directly? That kind of stuff. The other problem I have is the very first line in the Verge story is June 27th marks the 10-year anniversary since Steve Jobs unveiled the first iPhone. That's the first sentence. That's dead wrong. It wasn't June 27th. It was January 2007.
Oh, dear.
So the combination of those two things and possibly many more make you suspect the book itself. Well, there's been a lot of bad books written about Apple and about the company over the years. Now, the interesting thing is I'm interviewing Brian Merchant on next week's Your Mac Life show. And that's going to be the first question I ask him is, what's this all about? What is the Tony Fadell story? How did you hear about it?
Yeah.
Did you hear about it secondhand? Did you hear about it from Fadell himself? Because we know, or at least we think we know, that Tony Fadell and Phil Schiller really didn't like each other very much. Now, they're saying something different today, but back when Fadell was at Apple, there had always been rumors of friction between Schiller and Fadell. And I know from personal experience that Schiller can be an awfully abrasive guy. He's very engaging when you agree with him, and he's very fun to talk to when you're on the show floor of a Macworld Expo. But I've got at least two experiences where I was dealing with Schiller myself, where he was an asshole. There was no doubt about it.
I've never had that experience with Phil.
Well, that's because you don't rub people the wrong way like I do.
No, look. I mean, not getting into the details and stuff, but I've talked to Phil and had different opinions on things than what Phil has, and he's been more than willing to stand there and listen and talk about it. and I've never had a situation where he's been abrasive or been an ass or anything other than, you know, I mean, it's been a great conversation. He tells me his point, I tell him my point. We go back and forth. It's been great. So, and I mean, this is going back a lot of years. So I don't see that side of it at all.
We'll stay on the phone after we finish this interview, and I'll tell you my story of Phil being a dick.
Well, and then see, is it Phil being a dick or is it you being a dick? Because you know, I've had experiences on both sides of this now, so.
And you know, from experience, odds are it was me.
Yes.
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 Most likely, it was me. Folks, if you get a chance, go to the loopinsight.com. You can check out the Dalrymple Report with guests John Gruber, Matt Drance, and apparently lots of Heineken live from WWDC. You guys used the Apple Podcast Studio, didn't you?
Yes.
How was that?
Yes, we did. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
was
lots of great gear.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Was it gear you recognized? You they posted. They knew they were you knew they were using good stuff and.
Yeah.
Good,
definitely.
Good. Check it out at loopinsight.com or do a search for it over on the iTunes store. Until next week, he's been Jim Dalrymple. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Shawn.
Welcome back, folks. Thank you guys very much for listening into that taped interview we did with Jim Dalrymple earlier this afternoon. He had a previous engagement this evening, so he couldn't join us live. Let us know what you think about anything that Jim talked about or the comments he made about me. Quite cruel, if I do say so myself. Send emails to Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com. In our starting point photography segment, went out this past weekend to Commercial Drive here on Vancouver, which is a really cool working class, lower middle class neighborhood in Vancouver. It's got some of the neatest, tightest concentration of ethnic restaurants and bookstores and hair salons and coffee shops and it's a really cool. It's my favorite neighborhood in the whole city. The largest community in the Commercial Drive area is the Italian community, and there is every year in June the Italian Day. It's a one day where the Commercial Drive is blocked off for about 20 blocks, and the Italian community comes out, and there is food, not just the Italian community, but there's the Greek and Portuguese and Brazilian and Slovakian, and there's food carts, and there's stuff for sale, and there's handcrafts. I love Italian Days. 300,000 people. That's about a third of the population of Vancouver. Come and wander the streets and take pictures and see and be seen. So I took a group of my starting point photography beginning students down to Italian Day. And they were all asking about one of the things I do with these photo walks, meetups I do, is I try to have all the students have something in mind, a focus to shoot on that particular occasion. And it doesn't have to be the same as everybody else, but I always tell beginners, rather than sort of going someplace and trying to shoot everything, if you go someplace with a particular idea, concept, technique in mind and focus on doing that thing, you're practicing it, you'll get better at it, as opposed to trying to do everything all at once. So I told them, for me, Italian Days is all about faces. It's all about people. And I love shooting. That's my style of photography, is street photography or urban photography. And a lot of street photography is about people. So there are all kinds of different ways to shoot people. There are two main ones I'm going to tell you guys about. But one of the first things you got to do in any environment where you're going to go shoot is be ready to shoot in that environment. I know it sounds kind of obvious, but in this particular case, if my focus is going to be on shooting people, I set my camera up to shoot people. Now, if you are a rank beginner what you can do is use the mode dial on your DSLR or use the buttons on the back to switch your scene modes to portrait. As we've said in the past, portrait mode tells the camera you're about to point it at faces, and it will make the background blurry. It'll open up your aperture. It'll make your aperture number really small, but that means the aperture is open up really, really wide. Lets lots of light in, and that makes the background really blurry. It will also soften skin tones to a certain degree. So you're helping the camera, rather than being on auto mode, by putting it to portrait mode, you're helping the camera figure out what you're pointing it at. And that's always a good thing. So keep those scene modes in mind. The basic ones are portrait, landscape, macro for shooting things up close, and sport or action mode. So if you're shooting those things, don't have your camera on auto mode. Shoot the landscape mode if you're shooting landscape. Shoot portrait mode if you're shooting people. Shoot action mode if you're shooting kids running around or birds or things like that. And then shoot macro mode if you're shooting things up close. So what I wanted them to do in this particular occasion is to, if you're going to shoot people, they asked me what I did. So I'm going to be shooting on manual. And they were like, oh, no manual. I said, no. It's actually very, very easy in this regard to shoot manual. The first thing you do is you set your mode dial to manual. And then I set my aperture number to be as small as it can be. On this particular lens, it's a 1.2.8 lens. And then my shutter speed depends on the lighting conditions. So anywhere between 500 to 1,000, 1/500th to 1/1,000th of a second. Because that will freeze motion. That will stop people's faces. It'll capture the mid-blink or mid-yawn or mid-movement, whatever it is. I don't want their faces to be blurry. I want them to be as sharp as I can. And before they even showed up, I was there 15, 20 minutes early, and I started taking just some test shots to see if my settings were correct, to see if 500 to 1/500th to 1/1,000th worked. And it did in some situations, it did in others. So it was at the beginning, a bright sunny day. When I shot people whose faces were in the sunlight, 1/1,000th was great. But when I shot folks who were over in the shade, underneath the awnings and things like that, it was a little too fast and the pictures were too dark. So I knew that when I'm shooting in the shade, I've got to decrease my shutter speed. So it went down to 1/500th of a second, and that brightened things up. So that was the first thing, was to get ready to shoot, to get your camera set up to shoot. The next thing is real simple. Just look for interesting faces. I've got a philosophy, if you want to call it that not everyone is beautiful, not everyone is handsome. But as a photographer, it's your job. I think everyone's face is interesting. And as a photographer, it's your job to find out what is interesting in that face, whether it's the eyes or the wrinkles or the smile or whatever it might be. Whatever you think is interesting, it's your job as a photographer to capture that on film, on your camera. So there's a couple of ways of doing this. You can either walk through a crowd looking for people, or my favorite technique is just to stand still. So Commercial Drive is a 2-lane street, and what I will often do is just stand literally on the yellow line and let the crowd come towards me. As opposed to walking and trying to find my way through the crowd, let them come towards me and look for those faces, look for those interesting aspects of the people that I'm looking for. I think my best shot of that this past weekend was, let me see if I can't find it real quick. This lady was walking towards me. She was just stunningly beautiful. But the funniest part about her not her face, but of her, why can't I find it? God damn it, it was just here a second ago. The funniest part was not so much her beautiful face, but it was the gorgeous bird that she was walking around with on her shoulder. This bird had this beautiful, beautiful bright red beak and this fluorescent turquoise body. and this interesting black ring around its neck. And I asked her what kind of bird it was. I think she said it was some sort of Portuguese bird of some kind. I'm not 100% sure of what kind of bird it was. But so that's what I mean about looking around you, just standing still and watching the world come towards you, looking left and right, and just being aware of where you are and the people. By the way, MacMan says, I need to get up your way sometime to do one of these classes. Well, the classes you can do online, MacMan. You can do them via Google Hangouts. But if you're ever in Vancouver, you're more than welcome to come on a photo walk with me. So there are two things about street photography when it comes to shooting people. There's two methods of doing it. And one is asking permission. Walking up to someone and saying, hey, you've got a great face. Would you mind if I took some pictures? The other is to take pictures of people who you haven't asked permission of, either surreptitiously or just standing right there in front of them and taking a picture, and they haven't given you permission. It's very funny. There's a famous Dutch street photographer who quite literally has the most odd, interesting technique I've ever seen. You can see him on YouTube. And what he'll do is he'll go into a crowd like this. When he sees an interesting face, and he's got this little thin pancake lens on it, on his camera. He sees a face, he walks up and he just takes a picture. He literally just walks up and just snaps a picture right in their face within, a foot, 6 inches of their face. People are like, the hell was, and he walks away. That may or may not be a technique that you want to use. The two different kinds of shooting, asking for permission and surreptitious, will create two different kinds of images. One of the downsides of asking permission is people tend to pose. As soon as you ask them for permission and point a camera at them, they, even subconsciously, will do something different and not be in that natural state. That maybe that's what you want. If you want pose shots, great. You're set. Go ahead. But if you want a natural movement and a natural vibe to your shots, it's a little bit harder to do it that way. So one of the things I find is really easy to do is I've got a business card. I got my regular business cards. It says Starting Point Photography on them. And when I see a face that I want to talk to, I'll walk up to them and hand them a business card and introduce myself. Hi, my name is Shawn King. I'm a professional photographer. I think you've got a really, really interesting face. Would you mind if I took a couple of pictures of you? And some people say yes, some people say no. If they say no, you say, thanks very much, didn't mean to bother you, and walk away. If they say yes, be ready to shoot right away. Don't shoot right away, but be ready to shoot right away. Before you start shooting, talk to the person. Say, do you have a couple minutes? Can I talk to you for a second? What's your name? Where are you from? What do you do for a living? Oh, that's really interesting. You like that job? Who, what, when, where, why? Keep those 5 W's in mind, and you can interview anybody for 5 minutes. Who are you? What do you do? Where do you live? How do you do it? All those kind of things. It's really easy to ask those questions. And then you just say, okay, great. The light is really good here. Would you mind just turning your face that way a little bit? And then just start taking pictures. Be quick about it. Don't waste a lot of their time. Don't have to fuss with your camera and worry about this, that, the next thing. Be able to go, thank you very much, Diane. I really appreciate it. And then start taking pictures. The picture I took of this woman with the bird, she was literally, why is that thing down there? Go away. Hang on. She was literally walking by, and I said, hang on, would you mind stopping for a moment? And she stopped and turned, and I said, I want to take pictures of the bird. She stopped, and she turned, looked at me, and then looked at the bird, and I took 3 or 4 shots. My camera was on burst mode, and it took maybe 10 seconds, if that, and she walked away. So, yeah, MacMan says that bird almost looks fake. I know. But the other thing was really cool? It was a really smart bird. I don't know if you folks saw my Twitter feed. I had been sitting down, and I sat down next to this Japanese couple, very cute little boy and girl couple, and they had this little itty-bitty tiny little toy dog. As soon as I sat down, the dog jumped in my lap. He just moved over into my lap and was like, I bet I got a bigger lap. That's why he wants to sit here. And so the woman with the bird, apparently the bird likes dogs, because she said to the bird, want to give him a kiss? And the bird said, yes. And she leaned in with her shoulder, and the dog stuck his nose up, and the bird just gave the dog a little peck in the nose. It was so cute. Yeah, the bird definitely looked fake. So my camera was ready to shoot. I was ready to shoot. I knew what I wanted to shoot, not necessarily her face. I wanted to get the bird, so I was focused on the bird. Because my aperture was set where I wanted it to be, I got a nice blur. If you look in the background, she's not in sharp focus, but the bird is. That was my goal in the shot, was to get the bird in focus and her a little out of focus. So I got the shot that I wanted to get because I was ready to take the shot. So one of the things that I find is easier to do too, and this is really weird, I rarely am able to walk up to someone by myself and say, hey, you've got a great face. Do you mind if I take pictures? I feel kind of uncomfortable doing that. Partially because I don't want to make them uncomfortable. You know, some big goofy looking guy comes up to you in the middle of the street and asks to take your picture. You're like, no, fuck off, dude. But if I'm with somebody, it's a lot easier. Vito Mori and I have done this in my photography group. We've done it several times. Over the weekend, one of the ladies saw this great face. This woman had these two cute dogs, and she had this bright orange hair and a nose ring and tattoos. She had a great look to her. And one of my students said, Shawn, would you mind asking her if we can take her picture? I said, sure. So I walked up to the woman, I gave her a business card and said, hey, I'm with this photography group, and I'm teaching these guys how to take pictures of people. Would you mind if they took pictures of you? And the woman said, no, not at all. So what I did then, this is why it's great to do this with a buddy, is I started interviewing the woman. I started talking to her. While the photographers were over here taking pictures, I'm over here talking to her. Hey, what are the dogs' names? Where did you get them? Are they rescue dogs? That's really interesting. What do you do for a living? Where do you live? Are you native to Vancouver? All that kind of stuff. It's really easy to ask those kind of basic questions to people. And while I'm doing that, my photographers are walking around taking pictures. So that makes things quite a bit easier. So if you can, go with with a friend or with a group, because that makes things, you're safer in a group. I don't have much worry about that, but some folks have a legitimate fear of their own personal safety when they're trying to take pictures like that. So go with a buddy or two, or join meetup.com in your neighborhood and in your city, and go with other photographers, because that might be more helpful and more make you more comfortable shooting in these environments. The important thing for me is when I'm asking someone for their photo is to definitely offer to send them the photos that I've taken. I will say, here's my business card. My email address is on the back. Please, if you want to see the photos that I take, no problem. Just send me an email and I'll send you off the good photos. And people like that. They'll get photos of themselves. MacMan says, if you're doing street photography, have a few model releases in your bag or an app on your device isn't a bad idea either. That's true if you're going to sell the photos. If you're just a beginning photographer, you want to take some pictures to practice, or if you want to put them on Facebook or Twitter, you don't have to worry about model release. But if you are a semi-pro or want to submit your photos to a stock agency or sell your photos, then you'll definitely need a model release. And you can, as MacMan says, you can get apps for that. I've got them on my iPad for when I need to do those kinds of things. Monty says, I'm still a little uncomfortable shooting pictures of random people in public. It somehow seems like an invasion of privacy, even though I live in a metro area with one of the highest numbers of security cameras in the Southeast. It's not an invasion of privacy in a legal sense. Anything you can see in public, you can shoot. So people, buildings, cars, whatever it is. But I understand what you're saying. You think you're invading their privacy, which is where the surreptitious method of shooting comes in. And the old joke is the shorter your focal length, the bigger your testicles. In other words, you can use a 200 millimeter lens and shoot from across the street, or you can use a 50 millimeter lens and get right up in someone's face. That's on you. That's how you decide how you want to create these photos. One of the things that I do in street photography is I use this little camera. You've all seen my great big D600, but generally on the street, when I'm by myself, I use a smaller camera. It's less obvious. It's easier to carry around, obviously. Makes me look like a tourist. People tend to ignore tourists when they're taking pictures on busy street corners. Also, get the widest angle lens you can get. This is a 12 to 40 millimeter lens. I'll explain why in a second. So generally you want to dress casually. Don't dress in bright clothes. This is when you're doing it surreptitiously. Don't dress in bright clothes. Don't make yourself obvious if you want to take these kinds of shots. Stand still. Stand next to something, a telephone pole or a mailbox or something like that. Blend into the environment. The same sort of thing, you're looking for those faces that are coming towards you, but you want to be as still as you can to not draw attention to yourself. Our buddy Antonio Rosario is an amazing street photographer, and he has this really interesting technique. He's got a small camera. I think he's got a Fuji A7 with a little tiny pancake wide-angle lens on it. And Antonio will get dressed up as a tourist. He looked like any other middle-aged tourist that you'll see anywhere in New York City. He has just a regular camera strap, nothing fancy, that goes around his neck. And he walks around the streets of Brooklyn, where he lives. And as he sees an interesting face, he starts messing with the camera strap. It's sort of it's the old magician trick of look over here while I do something over here. So what he does is, as he's messing with the camera strap, pretending like it's, bugging his neck, the person walking towards him, all they see is a tourist. And so they ignore him. But in the meantime, as he's doing this, he's also taking pictures of the person. And because he's got a wide-angle lens, he doesn't have to point it directly at them. He can point it off to the side and still capture somebody over here or even further over here. So it's a really neat kind of distraction trick that he uses. Another one of the tricks that I use personally is I will focus on a spot and let the person walk into the spot. So someone's walking down the street towards me. There's a telephone pole right here. I'll focus on the telephone pole, knowing that when the person gets next to the telephone pole, they'll be in focus. If I stand still enough, the person will eventually ignore me as they're walking towards me. When they get next to the telephone pole, then I can start taking pictures. The other thing when you do that is don't take a picture, don't go this, and then move away. Take the picture, but don't move. Because that makes the person who's walking towards you think that you haven't taken the picture yet. The movement afterwards lets them know that they just took a picture of you. So point the camera near them. Like I said, this camera right now is getting, I can see, I'm looking through the viewfinder now, and I can see, where's my hand? I can see my hand out to about there. So even though the camera's pointed directly at you guys, I can see all the way over to here. And what that means is if someone's face over here, I can shoot here and still capture their face. So the camera doesn't have to be pointed directly at the person. You can point with a wide-angle lens, you can point it off to the side. The other thing is wide-angle lens, and this is the advantage I have being 6'3", is I will often shoot above the person who's walking towards you. Because it's a wide-angle lens, I'll still capture them down here. Not a full body shot, obviously, but I'll still get a head and shoulders shot. But it looks like I'm shooting the building up there. So it's another trick you can use when you're shooting street photography. It's going to happen that at some point your subject's going to notice. And it's going to happen that your subject may challenge you. How you deal with that will dictate what kind of street photographer you're going to be. The vast majority of people, Vito Mori and I, this was a few summers ago, we're sitting at a coffee shop. And I think I have that photo. And so we're just sitting along I think near Robson Street. and just talking about photography. We had gone out that day and wandered around taking pictures. And so Vito claimed that the coffee shop we were at was the best coffee in the whole city. So we went. We had a latte. We sit down on the patio, and we're just talking. We're just talking amongst ourselves. And this really good-looking guy is walking down the street. He's about 25, 26 years old, very handsome young man. And so I picked up my great big camera, and I took a picture of him. And he saw that I had taken the picture of him. And he stopped. And he said, "What'd you just do?" Here we go. Hang on. So there's the picture I took of the young man. He stopped and looked at me and said, "What'd you just do?" I said, "I took your picture." "Why'd you do that?" "Because you're a good-looking guy." "Oh." And he walked away. So I disarmed him. But I was able to disarm him because I didn't care. There wasn't anything he was going to be able to do. I knew what the law was. I knew what my rights and obligations as a photographer were. I knew what I was allowed to do and not allowed to do. So if he wanted to have that discussion, we could have that discussion. But it's also because I'm a big guy, I'm not worried about if he got aggressive with me. Now, if you're a 5'2" woman, maybe that's a concern. And maybe that would change your photography. So you have to keep that kind of stuff in mind. It's one of the reasons why I always encourage folks to do this kind of thing in groups, either official meetup.com groups or go with one or two of your friends. So they can watch your back, basically. But when someone challenges you, you want to always try to disarm them. Let them vent, first of all. Don't get up in their face. Let them say what they want to say. And if you want to, you can apologize and say, I'm sorry if this offends you or you don't like what I've done. In your head, you make the decision. You can offer to delete the photo, or you can offer to give them the photo, send them the photo, send them an email with the photo attached. They cannot make you delete the photo. Nobody can. Not even the police can. Only a judge can make you delete the photo. So don't think that you have to delete the photo just because somebody got upset. But again, that's how willing are you to defend your rights as a photographer? Me, I'll go to jail. I've been in jail before, not that big a deal. But obviously you may not be that interested in going to jail. So keep that in mind when you are doing these kinds of things. What are you going to do when somebody challenges you, and they're going to challenge you? It's going to happen, whether it be just a person on the street or a mall cop or somebody. What are you going to do in that situation? Again, keep in mind, anything you can see in public, you are legally allowed to shoot in public. And nobody can make you delete your photos except a judge. Okay? So keep those two things in mind. Street photography can be a lot of fun. One of the other things about it, too, is that it's often much, much better in black and white, especially people shots. Here's some shots I've got on my iPhone that I use for demonstration purposes. Come back. A lot of the times you're shooting from a distance away just because of circumstance. But in software and with enough megapixels on your camera, you can do some really interesting things to fix photos that were maybe too far away when you originally shot them. I'm just going through here. Here's this. So here's a shot I really liked of this young woman. And it's kind of hard to see. This is again with Vito and I. We were probably 20, 30 yards away from her. But in software, I was able to take that shot and turn it into that. That's a much, much better shot because I was able to crop, because my D600 is 20 megapixels. I was able to crop into the shot and get a much, much better shot in black and white. Same with this old guy. It's the exact same area of town. Vito and I are still standing there, and there's this old guy with this great face walking towards us. And so I took his photo And then again in software, I was able to create that shot. So don't think you have to be right up in someone's face to take the picture. One of the shots that I took was this wonderful couple outside the library here in Vancouver, and they were just canoodling, and they had a great look on them. But I didn't want to disturb them. I didn't want to get up too close to them. But in software, I was able to turn that shot into what I think was one of my better shots. I think that was, I don't know if you guys can see it. There we go. I love this picture. I really, really like that, the look on their faces, the way she's caressing his face, the way they're touching. So that shot, I'll show you the original. That shot came from this shot, just from cropping into the shot and doing some post-processing. Yeah, Mac Mosquito, very intimate. And the thing is, I didn't see the intimacy to that degree until after I got the camera, the shot home in the computer. Because I really wish I could have offered that picture to them. I really wish I could have said, "Hey, I think this is a nice shot. Please take my business card and I'll send you the photo." MacMan says, yeah, street photography works well with black and white and even sepia. We're actually doing a black and white photo shoot here in Vancouver in a couple of weeks. People's faces generally look good in black and white. Black and white tends to not erase wrinkles or imperfections in skin, but certainly smooth them out. And there's something about black and white and faces and buildings in particular that really lends themselves to the contrast of black and white. The neat thing about shooting black and white is you have to see in black and white. And a lot of cameras will actually let you shoot in monochrome. It's going to be in your settings somewhere if your camera can do it. Read your manual or do a Google search for your camera and monochrome settings. So this camera and my D600 will actually, when I shoot an image, it shows up on the back screen as a black and white image. It's still in color in the camera, but it shows me the monochrome image. And that's how you have to visualize the world. We tend to be attracted to color. We tend to shoot color as photographers. So shooting in black and white takes that away. And you have to look for contrast and shading and gray and lines. You have to look at photography in a different kind of way. Monty says, several of the large shopping malls around Atlanta have signs in the doors to the mall that says no photography allowed. And that's true. MacMan says, if it's posted, they can prevent you from taking photos since you're on private property. Exactly. As long as that sign is posted. If the sign isn't posted and you walk in and start taking pictures, a mall cop can still stop you from taking pictures. He can walk up to you and say, please stop taking photos in the mall. They can't make you delete the previous shots that you took, though. Okay? So if there's no sign in the door that you walked in, even the mall cop says, well, it's on the main door. Yeah, but I came in the side door. It didn't say anything on the side door. If there's no signage, you can shoot until someone makes you stop. And as soon as they ask you to stop, you must stop. But they don't have to make you delete the shots you've already taken up until that point. Monty says, Shawn, have you seen a difference between shooting in black and white in camera and shooting in color and post-processing to black and white? That's what I do. I shoot... I don't shoot in black and white in camera, but the camera shows me black and white. It's still a raw image. I still shoot raw. It still is an unprocessed image. The camera just shows it to me on the back screen, drained of color. And then I bring it into Lightroom to do the post-processing in black and white. MacMan says, we don't have a problem with people taking pictures of products in the store, but when they're taking pictures of whole displays, we'll usually ask them to stop, but that rarely happens. If you have any questions about this kind of shooting or any other kind of shooting, as always, please send me emails to Shawn@yourmaclifeshow.com. I'd really encourage you that if there's a festival going on in your neighborhood or in your town, take your camera out there, whether it's an iPhone or a DSLR or a mirrorless, whatever it might be, and start shooting some people. Shoot from a long distance away until you get comfortable. Go with friends. Take a couple of other friends with you and have all you do these kinds of things. Maybe one of you is brave enough to walk up to someone and ask to take their picture. you'll find this is really an interesting way of doing things. It gets you past that fear of talking to strangers. It lets you communicate to another human being and make a connection with that, especially if you, as I said earlier, ask questions, who they are, what they do, those kinds of things. That's one of the that's the social aspect of street photography that I personally really, really like doing. So give that a try when you get a chance. Going to wrap things up there, folks. As always, thank you guys very much for joining me. Thanks very much to Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com for being on the show. Even though he had to be here via taped, I still appreciate Jim doing it. And you guys, whether you're listening into the archive or listening in live, please let me know that you like the show. Send me emails to Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com or subscribe to Your Mac Life for $2, $5, $10, $15 a month, whatever it might be. You can go to our website at yourmaclifeshow.com. Right there on the left-hand side, you can subscribe. It comes out of your PayPal account or out of your major credit card. Money comes to me, and I use it to pay rent. As always, like I said, send me emails to Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com. Until next week, I've been Shawn King, and you've been listening to Your Mac Life. See ya!